Hello and welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. I'm Rob and I am joined with Lucas. It's just the two of us today, mate. We may have a couple guests, but for now, it's just us. So before we get into the overall build-up of why we're here for Survivor Series, let's play that trailer like we normally do.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.
We're back. Are you ready? Are you excited? Are you pumped for Survivor Series WarGames this year?
Partly, actually, in a weird way. I've made no secret on the channel that I don't like WarGames, but they've almost got me. WWE, they've almost got me with the men's WarGame match in particular, with the return of Randy Orton. I think that has kind of injected for me a lot of interest into that match, intriguing to that, because obviously it is. I know obviously injuries happen, and there's a lot of people obviously who are injured and who may or may not make their way back to the company or into AEW or whatever. But this one for me, it really felt like there was a point where it felt like it was never going to happen. Because you just felt like Orton been in the company now 20 years and getting to that age now where one injury here and there, he's decided to do it. He's not exactly strapped for cash, is he? It's not, not actually like a fundraiser for him, are you? Like he will just when it can, but he's got the Orton last name. It's a case of he wants to call it a day, he can call it a day quite easily. Move maybe into a coaching role or into commentary, into the world's his oyster, I guess. But it's been a long time. But people forget this. Like the last time Randy Orton wrestled a match, Vince McMahon was still chairman of WWE before he retired and came back. Before Triple H was in charge of creative, like there's been a lot that's happened. In that now almost a year and a half since Orton obviously got injured. Obviously, he's now former tag partner, I guess. Matt Riddle was no longer with the company either. And so there's not that obvious seed for him to go back to, they usually go with, don't they, during these absences.
100%.
But and I think it only been 5 matches as well. I guess it's one of those where it's like, okay, you kind of have to as we are going to spend the next kind of hour or so talking about, is obviously you do end up deeper diving into each of those matches because you're thinking, why are these matches important? Why are these on the pay-per-view, versus obviously all the other option combination they could have had? And don't get me wrong, they got a very big roster. They could have filled this card 2, 3, 4, 5 times over, with the talent they've got. Unlike obviously conversions like something like an AEW where you're sitting there with like 10, 12, 14 matches sometimes, particularly in the pre-show, you're like, bloody hell, how am I going to care about all of this stuff? Especially when the main event stuff there is going to be 25, 30-minute matches, each time. How can you invest in like all of those when, But I think the men's WarGames match, and I'm also looking forward to Gunther versus The Miz, actually, in a weird way. What about you? What match are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to the men's WarGames. Definitely, because I'm intrigued as to what's going to happen next. I mean, is it going to be a Randy Orton turn? Is Priest going to do a cash-in? Like a lot of questions like that. But weirdly, the one I'm actually looking forward to is Rhea Ripley going against. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like they could steal the show.
Oh, is that kind of possible on a WarGames night? Like it's because obviously the WarGames matches, obviously the 2 of them, they will be the longest matches on the show. You have to imagine, you have to imagine.
It's got to be right.
And obviously they involve the most amount of wrestlers, and so you could argue. And I think in terms of WarGames, as much as I'm not a fan of it per se, I think if you are looking at what WarGames can offer, there's a lot there that will interest and be exciting to people watching. And so even a bad WarGames match, which obviously there have been some, and there've been some decisions made in WarGames matches that obviously people don't like, haven't liked over the years. But even a bad WarGames match, it will at least somewhat be entertaining, because there'll be, like, especially with how WWE do them with the weapons and stuff, there'll be weapon spots and there'll be all sorts of stuff going on inside the cages.
Yeah.
But in terms of, Rhea Ripley against Zoey Stark, it's good that Rhea is allowed to defend the title again. As we spoke, I think it was last month we spoke, didn't we? We said it was a long gap, wasn't it, between title defenses? It felt like, that old 30-day rule obviously wasn't applying to her.
Or Roman.
Or to Roman, yeah, I guess. And yeah, so it's nice that she's defending the belt once again. And I have noticed that Triple H has actively been trying to book more women on the shows lately. And I think that's very, very important, as I felt that we was almost going back a bit.
Yeah.
I know every time I kind of criticise Triple H, or his booking or whatever, it hurts me, because I'm a massive Triple H fan. Like, in terms of in-ring, he's always one of my favourites. And obviously I do like how he's booking as well, but there are some tropes where you're like, oh, this is kind of going backwards a bit, mate. Like, obviously, for all people say negatively about Vince, obviously the Women's Revolution, I think, is definitely something people can appreciate being an important thing that happened in wrestling. But I think Triple H has kind of gone backwards a little bit, back to kind of having, very short tag matches on Raw. The pay-per-view outings being less for the women this year, as opposed to the previous few years. And obviously not having both the titles defended too regularly, I think that's something which, as much as some of the booking-wise and some of the opponents and match quality-wise, you could say wasn't the best potentially at times with the Vince McMahon way, it was still like you knew you were going to see like both women's belts be defended, because they had in their head the 50-50 booking. But this match could be interesting, actually, because Zoey, obviously, she was integral to she was integral with Trish Stratus earlier on in the year, and obviously she's branching out now, and obviously being in a match like this, especially at a big four, like, I think as much as the company has moved on to an extent, from the old days, the big four being the be-all and end-all, and every pay-per-view now is like a big, as we're going to see next year, obviously, now they're big international affairs, going all around Europe and the world, etc. I still think getting a singles match on Survivor Series is a big deal, surely.
Yeah, definitely. Especially for someone as well that's not kind of been in the mix of Raw or SmackDown, at least. Because, I mean, she's only been around, she's been floating around, what, a year? Less than a year?
Weren't she on NXT this time last year, I believe?
I believe so, yeah. I mean, because she come up with Trish.
Yeah, that was only
she come up and then Trish was around.
After like Mania, wasn't it?
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is, I believe we have someone else joining us. They give us a thumbs up when we're ready, and I'll segue I'm in. But yeah, like, it's interesting to see the fact that, as you said, like, she was on NXT and now she's like on Survivor Series on a one-on-one match. But obviously we've got two guys' opinions. Let's bring in a female, and we'll get their opinion on how they feel about the women's wrestling and stuff like that. We are joined by Michelle. Hi. Hello.
Hi, Rob. Hi, Lucas. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, all good.
I'm coming to you live from Milton Keynes with a very fetching John Cena blanket behind me.
Oh, lovely.
How are you both?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, all good,
yeah, really good. Great to be back on joining you both. I tuned in just as you started talking about some women's wrestling. I like all the wrestling, but it's good to hear the girls being talked about, as always.
Yeah, so we were saying, I think Ripley and Stark could potentially steal the show, because it's like, the only women's one really there that's a singles, and they got to compete with all the others. So
yeah, I also think it's really interesting that, I mean, obviously Stark was in kind of the Fatal 5-Way, but she's not really had a chance to shine on the main roster like big time. And I think there's a few people maybe asking questions around how she's going against Ripley, but we know Ripley's a really solid performer, has put some really good matches in this year, and we know that Zoey Stark's also really solid and probably a little bit more technical than Ripley. So I think we're going to see a really nice contrast in styles. Sorry, my hands look really big there. Sorry, I take them off the table. And it potentially is that kind of, we often find, don't we, with the WWE PLEs, that it's the one we don't expect that really knocks it out of the park. And I think there's so much hype and expectation around both of the WarGames matches that they have a chance to go under the radar and really shine tonight. So yeah, quite excited about it, actually. Quite excited about it.
Yeah, I really am. I think for me, it's the fact that because there's so much more going on everywhere else. I mean, like the IC title match, there's like the War Game. It's so busy that I think women will get lost in it anyway. So
there's
having that match.
There's an awful lot going on. I think it's also interesting to remember. We always talk about storyline, but actually, we know that sometimes just a wrestling match for a wrestling match's sake is also okay.
Yeah.
And I think WWE've got some really big overarching storylines: Judgment Day, Cody's story, Bloodline stuff, which they've obviously kind of put on hold for a little while. That sometimes you do need those smaller chunk bits. So I think it has the potential to be a really, really strong match, and especially with there being some really big hitters in terms of the women performing tonight. That they've basically pulled pretty much all the big names out of the bag for the women's War Games. So it's nice to see someone like Zoey Stark shining. I think she'll probably really rise to the occasion, I'm hoping.
Yeah. So we'll stand for the women for just 1 second. As you were saying, there's a lot of people that are being like names that we've got floating around that are in the War Games match. So going into the women's War Games match, obviously we've got a big list. One that really stands out for me, I know the whole damage control thing's happening, but did you get to see Shotzi's promo last night?
I haven't seen it yet, but I like a couple of you guys went to the WWE live event at Wembley a few weeks ago, and it's the first time I've seen on like the house shows they've let people start to interact and work the crowd and things like that, and I think she's starting to get a lot more comfortable on the mic. I think she's starting to get there.
I think so. From my opinion, at least, or from how I've seen it, is obviously we had the hair cutting scenario, and then that was like a one whole character change. And then if you get a chance, go back and check the promo that she'd done with, I think it was all the baby faces in the ring. And she was kind of a little bit like Joker Sting, going a bit crazy. So I don't know if her losing her hair is kind of taking her down that kind of path. So it's going to be like
kind of what they it's kind of what they teased, wasn't it? It's kind of what they teased.
I'm intrigued, but other than that, for the actual War Games, who do you see winning? Is it Team
I think Damage Control win. I think Damage Control win because they've just clearly been put together as a really dominant female faction. And last year, Lucas, I think it was me, you, and Scott, and I was talking about Triple H coming in and introducing Damage Control, that there might be a big push on women's factions, and that then seemed not to happen really. And Damage Control didn't quite pick up the momentum that a lot of us thought they would. And the addition of obviously Kyrie and Asuka and so on, I think Damage Control win to establish them a little bit like the Judgment Day in their early days, just smash through matches for quite a long time. And also, if we're being honest, you know, Shotzi, Bayley, Charlotte, and Becky they don't need to win. They're all, Shotzi maybe because she's a relatively, I don't want to say small player, but you know what I mean. But none of them need a big win right now. To really establish Damage Control as a big heel women's faction, they need the win tonight. So for me, I think it's them, logically speaking. But on my group chat and my spreadsheet wager, I tend to get these things wildly wrong. So who knows? Who knows?
I think, I always think that they usually go for if the villains win one and the faces win the other. I think this is very much the villains to win. I think Damage Control, this is a bit controversial maybe, but I think it hasn't really worked. Definitely not in the last few months. Like I think for whatever reason, the narrative has been that people wanted the turn to happen for a long time, like Bayley's on EO. They wanted that to happen for a long time, and something we were speaking about before we went on air. When WWE they go down, they let fans deliberately go down these rabbit holes that aren't going to happen, and then the fans get upset when things don't happen. So obviously there are probably fans that are upset that Bailey hasn't turned on Io or Io hasn't turned on Bailey. But they've now changed it by obviously introducing Asuka and welcoming back Kairi Sane. Kairi Sane, I think, is like phenomenal, by the way. And I think, I'm with you, Michelle. I think they have to decide now: are they going to take this faction seriously now? Because they can say before, like obviously they had the thing with Dakota Kai getting injured, and that changed their plans. And then they had obviously the 6-woman tag at WrestleMania, and they wanted the babyface to win. And then they transitioned Trish into obviously a villain role after Mania. Oh, Michelle's gone. I paused her that much. She left.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear? Can you see me?
All
Sorry.
good. All good. Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, essentially, I think this now, like if Damage Control don't win now, there has to be a turn, surely, because you can't recruit new people,
definitely.
change your lineup. Still got Dakota Kai as a manager, I think, as well, haven't they?
Until that injuries over
4 random people. Who, yes, I'm with you, Michelle. Like, Shotzi aside, they're all kind of well established. They don't need the win. And if anything, I think that, a Charlotte or a Becky should take the pin in this. They should, in terms of what's best for business and establishing this faction as dominant and important, one of the big players, and they are
is Lucas frozen? Is that just me?
And Becky Lynch should take the pin.
He seems all right.
Oh, he's buffering. He's buffering. I think just while we're waiting for Lucas.
Oh, have I gone?
You seem fine on mine. I don't know.
Oh, he frozen mine. Sorry, Lucas, you frozen me. I was going to say, in terms of Becky or Charlotte taking the pin, personally, I think it should be Charlotte. And my feelings are Becky's clearly doing a lot to put younger, less experienced women over at the moment. And if they want us to take Charlotte seriously as a face, she has to show that she's willing to put other women over on the roster, because I think that's still a little bit of a sticking point for some people. And it's about whether WWE Creative are going to put their foot down with her a little bit about it. But we will see. I mean, while we're still talking about the women's WarGames, I'm really sorry. I just chimed in like, hi guys, let's talk about this. And I won't be staying too long, unfortunately. But for me, last year the women's WarGames was a really strong match. I really enjoyed it. And the men's is very, very, very loaded with some big names.
Yes, it is.
Big names. And I think the women have to step up tonight. But I think they've got enough. They've got enough contrasting styles, enough experience, and enough new blood in that ring to make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. I do agree. Weirdly, I've gone the other way with who's taking the pin. I believe it could be Shotzi, because I think this could be the reason why she actually switches, and I don't think it will be like to heel, and I don't think it will be absolute babyface, but I think she'll be that big tweener. So, yeah. I feel like that could be the thing that kind of switches her. But it depends what route they're going to go. We do have some comments though, so let's quickly jump to the deal. Dan Coulter personally opens up tonight's show just for Grayson Waller to come out saying, "Did you expect somebody else? The amount of feet would be insane."
Do you know what? I wouldn't put it past them at all. And I think one thing Waller's proven since he's come up to the main roster is he's really delivering on the mic. He's really delivering. He's great. I really love him.
Yeah.
He's doing almost what they wanted Theory to do as a heel, and it didn't
I was
quite
about
land.
to say Theory looks too babyface to be a heel, whereas Waller is absolutely perfect. So
I'm allowed to swear. It's after 9 o'clock. I'm allowed to swear, right?
I mean, Scott's not here, so I'm.
He's a little word that rhymes with it. I like it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he's picking on Taylor Swift fans and just winding everyone up. I mean, he knows what he's doing. And the fact that he's getting other eyes on a product is, it helps. So
100%.
So I guess if we're talking about cult of personality, before we move further on,
is
CM Punk returning tonight?
No, too obvious.
I said the same thing.
Too obvious. And also,
Lucas.
we have, I don't know, yeah.
I think I was adamant for a long time. The thing is, sometimes obvious is what works, though, isn't it?
I suppose it did with Cody Rhodes, didn't it?
Yeah, did with Cody. Everyone was batting on other names. And even to be fair, CM Punk's original return to wrestling for AEW it was booked obviously, and it happened, because it was the obvious thing to do. I think it's, we spoke a lot about Punk, obviously, around, obviously, his AEW exit weekend, and followed that through, obviously, from several. We had specials and stuff on the channel. But I do think that it's very time limited now for what they can do with him, because he's Rub, so to speak, is only going to last for so long, and there's only going to be a number. There's a finite number of years that he could do this for. It's not like he's someone who's in his 20s and 30s, that kind of thing. He's now in his 40s. He's been out of the business for a long time. Been out of the WWE for a long time as well, which is even more important. But it's a very different beast there. Everyone says that about wrestling there. It's very different to wrestling anywhere else. And so this could be the smart thing. But also, they could have him just return on Raw, which would be another good thing to do. Because that way you're getting the guaranteed money from essentially teasing it at Survivor Series. And they're not saying anything. They're not they literally let you think that. And Survivor Series has got the WarGames thing that sells. But if he returns on Raw, that's unexpected. But they're still around the same kind of time period. But I don't know now. I really don't know.
I'm going to say something quite controversial about Punk, really.
Right.
And I say controversial. He's a very divisive figure, anyway. I just think, I think that the caliber of the WWE roster at the moment, and the amount of frankly big names that are carrying the company, do we really see him coming and being a top guy? For me, I see him maybe being a mid carder, and I think just based on what I've heard, I don't know the guy personally. I think Punk's ego is too big to let him do that. One of my friends was saying earlier that maybe they offer him a limited deal of 5 matches or whatever, and with a bit of a no BS, let's see how you get on clause, which might work. But we also need to think Triple H is very what's best for business, but is what's best for business upsetting half your locker room right now, because he seems to have the talent in quite a good place. There was a bit of unease over the TKO takeover and some people being let go. Throwing Punk into the mix might rattle some people, and not in a good way. So I think Triple H he's not stupid. He's good at finding the balance between the creativity, what's best for business, and what's best for the talent. And I don't think he'll come back tonight. I wouldn't be surprised to see him come in at the Rumble, maybe.
Yeah, a lot of people have mentioned the Rumble about this. I mean, I think it's interesting now because they have just negotiated their TV deals. And I do believe that something that did come up, obviously, before, is they felt angered that WWE didn't, Fox in particular, felt angered that they didn't approach CM Punk or sort anything out with him when they had him doing that backstage deal. And then he obviously went to AEW, and he wasn't really pursued at the time by WWE enough for what Fox felt. And obviously now they've just changed their TV deal. And it's interesting, because again, wrestling now is run by, weirdly, not people outside the business as much as it is inside the business. And if the TV networks really are gunning for someone who they're going to go, look, we want the ratings, TV ain't what it used to be. And if Punk, he has proven in AEW, he can pop that rating, he can get eyes on him. But again, it is with Punk, sadly, all the other stuff that comes with it. Is that, and that's what they're weighing up, and they are obviously.
Is it going to be worth the risk? Yeah,
is it worth the risk? And I do agree with you, Michelle. I think there's top echelon performers there in the WWE who will be with that company in their position for hopefully many years to come. And I don't know where you slot Punk into this. I think the easiest feud is a Punk versus Rollins feud, because sadly Rollins is just the person who you go, give him anything, he'll make it work. But obviously, with his legitimate back injury, and with the fact that obviously they've kind of done this feud a lot of times with Rollins now. How many times can they do this same kind of thing of him always being the person that they always been the measuring stick against someone and coming up on the losing end? Because he lost 3 times in a row to Cody, and now obviously he's in a much different position, Rollins. But can he do that again to someone like a Punk? And would he want to do it again? Would he want to do it to Punk? There's lots of...
He's been quite vocal about his dislike of him as well as a person, hasn't he? So,
more than once.
Yes,
so I said on the build up, something I would like to see. If Punk comes back, then great. I'd love to see it happen. It's one of them things. It was like the scene of Rock thing. You get it once in a lifetime, and then all of a sudden it's twice in a lifetime. Seeing Punk re-debut and get that big pop would be it'd be amazing to see. I said to Scott, if they do it, then I think they need to plant a fan in the crowd to cry, and then they can recreate that exact AEW meme. I just think that would be. He's like, now we've got him, and I hate arguing with AEW and WWE. I hate all the wrestling, whatever
Politics.
it is. Yeah. But I just think that would be such a great moment. I think if they recreated it, they recreated the Cody thing with his hand to his ear. So, I'm just thinking maybe if he does come back, he'll do that. But you're right. There's so much talent, and that's just with teams in the WarGames. I mean, then you got.
I also, I was just gonna say, like, do they really? If people have been looking forward to Randy coming back so much, heel, face, anything in between, we're all here for it. Do they really want to try and overshadow that?
Exactly.
The whole Randy thing's awkward though. Like it's weird. Like they did that thing where they announced the return of someone without saying his name, without him being there. Then the commentators and the match graphic has said that he's there, and it's very odd. It's very odd. Like the only thing it kind of compares to is when they did the Undertaker and Kane match at WrestleMania 20, where obviously Kane. Honestly, like I wish they should be like an Oscars for wrestling. Kane had to basically sell that storyline, which the more you think about Kane, Undertaker, and all this kind of stuff, it is just really out there and weird as it is. But you got Kane like crying into a casket and bringing out an urn every week and saying the Undertaker's dead, blah blah, and then obviously they had to do the whole feud essentially with the fact that Undertaker was only going to ever return at MSG at Mania in front of the crowd, and then obviously you heard the dong and then Undertaker comes out, gets his entrance. And it's weird, like, why would you announce it the way they did? Like, even with Cody saying all the clues and then...
I'd heard a rumour, well, not a rumour, I've read on a few of the dirt sheets probably that they were just a bit sick and tired of the CM Punk being the fifth member rumours and just wanted to put it to bed.
But yeah, something which got shared was that they wanted to announce Orton so that, the Punk chance wouldn't ruin or the pay-per-view. But it does seem that now people are thinking Punk is going to be there anyway. Like there is still, I think with wrestling now, it just feels like there always has to be a surprise, and it's bloody AEW's fault.
WAW.
Tony Khan's announcements and having.
I do agree.
With a pay-per-view all the time. And to be fair, Triple H was doing it as well at the start of his run. The pay-per-views, obviously, he brought back the Fiend as part of one of them. Extreme Rules, I think it was. No, Extreme Rules, I think last year. Damage Control, obviously. Brock Lesnar at the end of SummerSlam in 2022. Was it Brock returned this year or last year? Whenever it was, Brock returned.
Last year.
Yeah. It was last year, wasn't it? At the end of SummerSlam. Yeah, when he just like rocked up, he just walked out and was like, "Yeah."
So, all right, lads, look at my cowboy hat. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I kind of. It was for me. It's a weird one, like just announcing a return that's not. But yeah, I get that might be why they want to do that.
But it was people need to remember CM Punk lives in Chicago. Of course, he's going to be seen in and around Chicago.
That's all I've seen on Twitter today.
I guess it's probably all
he lives in Chicago. He lives there.
I guess it's all going to come out, but it's a case of is this Punk deal? Is it coming down to the 11th hour? Is it potentially one of those where they've set a time limit on when they wanted him to sign or approve this deal, if they have sent a deal to him, because obviously Edge was very vocal before he left the WWE that he had a contract offer in his inbox for a long time, and then obviously declined that, as we know, to go to AEW. But is it one of those where they said to Punk, look, like you've got until then to, we're not going to do your BS, to use a machine.
We're not going to chase you. We don't need you.
This is what we're offering. You can return it, something along the lines of, look, return it to Survivor Series, get your big pop, get your big moment, get a promo the next night on Raw, and then get attacked by the person who will become your first opponent, who you'll be putting over at X date. Have they said that to him and said this run will not include title reigns and all this kind of bollocks that we know Punk, he the biggest fan of CM Punk. And also the biggest attractor of CM Punk is CM Punk. They're the same person. The person who hates him the most and who loves him the most is CM Punk. And so whichever CM Punk was on the phone that day, or email or whatever, or text message, and has it come down to 11th hour and they said, look, if we don't hear from you by then, this is what we're doing. And so
it's done. It's off the table,
And then, that's where we're at. Or is the deal still going on and they're hoping to
Who
get him
knows?
to...
Who knows? Who knows?
Who remember saying, look, we made Randy Orton seem like a big deal. We'll do the same for you,
But you don't need to make Randy Orton sound like a big deal.
No, you
Big
don't.
I think with the whole announcement of the Randy thing, I was saying this to Scott that, and it's weird saying this, but I think it's to protect Randy because
100%.
the last thing that we want is Randy coming out as the final entrant for the WarGames. These entrants coming out and going into the cage or whatever, however they're going to do it, and then everyone's kind of half-hearted because it's not Punk. So I think by announcing it now, we're not going to get that the whole Daniel Bryan moment and Rey Mysterio moment at Royal Rumble when Mysterio come out and he basically got booed. I mean, who in their right mind boos Rey Mysterio? It's such a strange thing. It's us wrestling fans. That's what it is. We get an idea, build it up, get excited, and nothing's actually confirmed. And every wrestling fan does it.
But
Sorry.
do you think that...
It's all right.
Do you think...
I'm going to have to go in a minute, sorry.
But do you think, though, that there's going to be backlash if they don't bring Punk? Or have they done enough?
No.
I guess not.
I think they've done enough by announcing Randy. So
Yeah.
They've done
I
enough.
think
They've
to
done enough.
cover that. Yeah.
All right, guys, it's been really lovely chatting with you. I'm really sorry I do have to go because I am at someone else's house watching the wrestling. So.
No.
But it was really great to catch up with you both and let me chime in. And no doubt we will all catch up around the time of the Rumble.
Yeah, we shall.
So that next one.
Lovely. Thanks, Michelle.
Great to see you guys. See you soon.
And you. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that's one person now eliminated. It's just the two of us again, Lucas. It's this is how it works. I feel like we're in a Rumble with just people going in and out. Hopefully it continues to happen. We get some more people coming in. If Scott was able to message around, obviously it's just us for now. But going on what we said, I think WWE may have just done enough to the Punk thing. I mean, the other thing before we move on to like the rest of the Survivor Series PLE, going on about the Punk at least, is a lot of people saying it's like Nakamura. He's going to answer the question. Now, for me, I don't see it being Punk if that's how they're going to bring him back. For me, I said to Scott, I think it could be Brock Lesnar because they had the thing in Japan. That'd be a very interesting take on how they're going to do it. I think, or the bigger one, Okada. Is that going to happen? I don't know. Thoughts on the Nakamura thing? Is it going to be answered tonight? Do you think that's what's going to happen?
I don't think it'll be answered tonight. I think, as I kind of said previously, I think, and we've agreed, I think tonight is very much, it's kind of stacked. It would only be, I think they don't want to put something like that on a show, which will only be, the third most important thing, if that, unless they make a really big song and dance of it, but that, I think for that, they'd have to do something like announce it before. When obviously they had the Undertaker's retirement thing at Survivor Series.
Yeah.
I've tried to forget that happened, but it did happen. That was announced beforehand, and obviously in front of a crowd, it would have probably gone down much better. Obviously, because of the circumstances at the time, it couldn't. But that was announced, so it made sense for it to be the final thing on a pay-per-view. But I think, having something that's just been on Raw and not even announced for the show, then become the main thing. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'm not too sure who it would be. It's a hard one. I think it ties more into being Brock, but I guess Brock's doing very different things, isn't he, lately? I guess so. It is. Yeah. It could be down right up his street, I guess. Or it could be something where, it could be like another Japanese name. I don't think it'd be Okada. But then it's saying that WWE surely would want someone that's known to their audience. Yeah. At least Okada, not known to their audience, but known to a wrestling audience. But then I guess
they're not blind to who
wrestling.
It is.
So it's a hard one. I know Triple H is trying to bring some of that back now, isn't he? The homages to, previous companies and to previous people working previously. I never forget when they had to act like Sting left WCW in 2001 and just rocked up a Survivor Series 12 years later. You know, because they didn't want to acknowledge the fact that he obviously was an impact and in you know, wrestling kind of all over the indies, you know, for like the last 13 years. But they're just like, yeah, he legitimately just left WCW in 2001 and he decided, you know what, I don't want to wrestle again for like another decade or so. And isn't that weird to think that was at Survivor Series? Sting's return was Survivor Series was 2014.
14, yeah.
Yeah, you know, 9 years ago now. And the fact that we next year are heading into Sting's proper retirement, which is
it's crazy.
You know,
absolutely crazy. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to probably one that I know you'll be interested in, which is Gunther and The Miz. Now, obviously, we've got The Miz playing a babyface, which is weird to see. I don't mind a babyface Miz. They've done it well this time. He's not just. Do you remember when he was babyface and paired with Ric Flair, and it just didn't feel right?
The figure four and all that one.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan. But this version of The Miz as a babyface is great. Obviously, it's for the IC title. Now, Gunther is the longest reigning IC title. Will he drop it tonight?
No. I love The Miz, and I think he is obviously a company man. You know, I think I think it was the 24 they did on him, and they had John Cena obviously talk about him, and you know, the praise that John Cena gives him says all we need to know about how valuable The Miz is to the company and to wrestling as a whole, because the guy works his arse off. Like, it's crazy the amount of stuff that he does. But I think ultimately the ship has just sailed. And it's mean because like he was obviously you know, he held the Money in the Bank briefcase obviously only a couple of years ago. He cashed it in and obviously was champion for like a week or whatever, and then they kind of had to transition it off Drew onto Bobby Lashley without obviously having the match. And he's done like everything that you know, matches with zombies. He's always been beat up by a celebrity.
Forgot about that.
You know, but I just think the ship sailed, and I think, you know, when I look at this run and looking at who Gunther's beaten, essentially what I'm looking at is, has Gunther beaten people better than The Miz? I'm like, yes, he has. And so I'm like, he's not then going to lose to The Miz, surely. Like, you know, and now, and I hate being this person, and people were booing me for saying this, but this is going to Mania surely now, isn't it?
I mean,
like, longest,
got it now, right?
Yeah, this is going to Rumble. I know he's no problem with Gunther. He can't leave America as well, so I guess he's not going to be at the Australian pay-per-view in February. And then the Rumble usually doesn't have many non-Rumble matches, obviously. And you're probably looking at, obviously, Roman's wrestling. That'll be a Roman match. Probably have the Seth match, maybe, and then the other two women's matches, or maybe a women's and a tag. So you're looking at a situation where you probably won't need needs on that either. So it's a case of, well, do they just stretch it out to Mania and obviously have the person beat him at Mania? Because they can make a big part of that being, I think, a almost main event level match. Or, which I mentioned earlier, you know, are they going to get to our Brock and Gunther match, which would be I'm bits that doesn't need the IC title, and that could be a way. But I think now we are getting to the point where they've got to have some sort of direction for it going into Mania. So it's a case of, in my opinion, either Gunther is retaining here and is going to go forward with obviously more title defenses, because he's been obviously very active on Raw and stuff with the title, but going forward to Mania to lose that belt to someone who they're building up, or he's losing it very soon to another person due to most likely something Brock Lesnar does, and then he's going on to face Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. But either way, none of those make sense for The Miz to win the championship tonight at like a random kind of... It feels like a very random kind of thing. They turn The Miz face because they need someone to face Gunther, and there's no like build or need to it. And you know, I've seen The Miz. You know, The Miz, obviously, he is one of those. There's a handful of them now that make you believe again, I guess, a little bit. And there is a part of me when I'm like, oh, okay, I'm there. But there's also the best of me. I'm thinking, yeah, it's this historic run is not ending to the Miz, in my opinion.
No, I 100% agree that the Miz isn't winning tonight. It's not the right time. I mean, if it was later on and it was a long build, possibly. But I think WWE are certain guys in WWE are in this position. Whereas if they get beaten if they're a champion or they're on like a unbeaten run or something like that, whoever it is that either knocks them off that run or defeats them to become the champion, they either have to have a reason behind it or it's just not believable. As we were just saying, the Miz, there's other people that better that have gone against Gunther. The Miz isn't going to be the one to defeat him, which is such a weird thing to, I guess, use in that way. But obviously, as wrestling fans, we do. So then if it isn't the Miz, then I feel like the only other person would be Lesnar. And obviously, you said him. But then I would like to see Lesnar go for the IC title because he's never gone for the IC title. But then is Lesnar too big for the IC title? Do you know what I mean?
I think I mentioned this stat previously, but Brock Lesnar remains to date the only wrestler to only have won world championships throughout his career. The other person was Hulk Hogan until he came back and had his little sympathy run, and he won the tag belts with Edge, didn't it, in 2002? But apart from singles belt wise, Hulk Hogan has only ever won world championship belts throughout WWF and WCW and TNA. He's only ever won those major belts. And Brock Lesnar, he's always felt like he's just not going to do that. But end of the day, I've said this like so many times. I could say this to the cows come home. But Brock Lesnar versus Gunther, IC title, world title, undisputed title, main event on first, on middle of the card, end of the card, I will always want to watch.
They'll still a show, man.
I will always want to watch. And another one that was cruelly didn't happen with us, or it did happen, but it was a 6-minute match because of how they had to build it. Like, that I feel the same way about Brock Lesnar and Samoa Joe. My God, could you imagine if they allowed those guys to get 20 minutes? Man, to get 20 minutes, to get 3 matches, 3 pay-per-views like they did with Cody this year or something, or Brock Lesnar versus Samoa Joe. My God, that could have been. I do agree. That could have been a trilogy. The best of them.
I would have said the only other name that I could think of, because I already had a bit of a history, would have been the NXT version of Keith Lee. I mean, just those two when they collided in a Rumble, Brock's face, and I don't think he was able to eliminate him. I believe that was the reason why. It's like there was chemistry there. There was something. But you're right. Samoa Joe, Gunther, Keith Lee, those guys against Brock. I think Brock would have had a field day. He would have been like, all right, well, let's start work. Like, any of them was a trilogy.
Against Brock actually is Kevin Owens. I think Kevin Owens showed that, through the Stone Cold thing and through everything he's doing anyway, that he's able to do whatever style the person kind of needs him to do. And I think that rough and ready side of Kevin Owens, that daredevil side, it entices me for a match with Brock, because Brock he's as physical as it gets, and he likes it, and I think there'd be that part where, if they're able to bend some rules about and, allow for a bit more of a mature match as part of a pay-per-view or something, that could be one that could be good, because I think both competitors would be open, most likely to bleeding if that was to come up, and I think they'd be able to get away with doing things that aren't in normal WWE matches. But obviously, it's a case of how do you get around that with obviously how WWE's run nowadays with sponsors and all that kind of stuff. Because as we've seen recently with NWA, haven't we? They lost their TV deal based upon a stupid decision they made in on pay-per-view on TV, because you can't do that nowadays. Stuff that you could do 20 years ago. But I think in terms of going back to this match that we're going on to different tangents now, but going back to Gunther and The Miz, I think ultimately we're at that stage of Gunther's run where we're looking for like the person who will get something off of this win.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything for the Miz to get off of this win other than just breaking his own record that he already has as well. He already has the most reigns. So he gets another reign. Like, okay, then what?
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't really think for Gunther, you know, because he's for me, it's just that question I said a minute ago. Like has he beaten people better than The Miz in this run? Yes, he has.
Yes.
He's beaten young competitors, bigger competitors, more main event level competitors like Drew McIntyre, etc. People who have been positioned in better positions. So why the hell would he want to lose? Would you book him to lose The Miz?
I agree.
You know, The Miz's time just isn't now. Like it's just one of those things. Like, you know, that happens in wrestling. You know, like King Kong Bundy. You know, main event of WrestleMania 2. By the time he came back, you know, around WrestleMania 10. The time was up. His time was up. He was no longer the threat he once was. Like, he had lost too many people. Like he wasn't seen the same way. And I think once you're kind of not seen the same way, like you never will be again. And I think that's what we are with The Miz now. I think it's a case of he got his run to be traditional champion because it was needs must before. But I just think anytime he's in like a big match scenario, like he's lost too many matches. He's been a bit in the company far too long, and people just know he loses. He is the guy who loses. And so I guess while there's a story there potentially, I don't see it. Like from but from this, and I think Gunther,
I agree. It's strange, isn't it? It's you know, I mean, you got to look at this is how I looked at it, at least when I was talking to Scott about the match itself. I was like, if he isn't gonna lose to Sheamus in Wales at Clash, there is no way that Gunther is losing to The Miz at Survivor Series. You know. Also, Sludge is in the building. So hi, Sludge. How you doing? Thoughts on Survivor Series? Who do you think's winning overall, or what match are you looking forward to the most? All right, so why don't we get on to this one, because this has changed. We were just talking about this before we came on air. So originally, this was against Carlito and Santos. So how thoughts on it changing?
They don't usually do things like this unless it's legitimate. Like in more recent years, like it feels it was something. The bait and switch is one of the oldest tactics in all of entertainment. You know, like you can trace this back to the days of the circus and the fun fair, years and years ago. But in terms of like this kind of stuff, like in wrestling, it's a trick they use a lot. You know, and obviously they've got to be. They always had to be quite careful with this because obviously, you know, especially if it involved a big name, you had to kind of know, is that person wrestling? Because the people were going to buy a ticket based on that information, based on the answer. It's Stone Cold, you know, imagine if they did this with like WrestleMania 17, like pulled Stone Cold and said, oh, you're getting like Big Show instead against The Rock. You know, we would have changed history big time again, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
No disrespect to Big Show, by the way, but you're not Stone Cold. That's you know, that's the way. And by that point, you're dead in the water. But anyway, I think ultimately, what you're looking at here is okay. So potentially, they want Dragon. I think they still want to push Dragon Lee, but I've noticed he becomes like the replacement for a lot of things. Which I don't know whether it's a good thing to kind of have in your repertoire. Like you're just always the replacement. Like, do you ever just have an announced match, Dragon Lee? Like, do you just rock up other people's matches?
Yeah, I was just saying that. Have you got your gear? Yeah, right. Well, you're on then. That's it.
The only thing I can think of is obviously Carlito. His deal obviously was apparently signed ages ago, and they let him finish his. They let him finish his like independent dates, didn't they? And then he's come in, and potentially they just don't want him taking a pinfall so soon into his return, and so they want to do the swap so that Dragon Lee takes the fall, and they can give Carlito more singles wins, and then he can lose further down the line to Santos Escobar. That's my kind of thought process. Did you catch that?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. As you said, like he's kind of like he pops in and pops out again. I said the reason I thought Dragon Lee would have been there with Axiom when they would have done the whole because they'd done the Dragon Lee and Axiom.
Yeah,
I think was it on a SmackDown or a Raw, and it was recent. So I don't know if they would have done that. And then the idea was the two guys from the LWO would then join Santos, and then Carlito was there on his own, and then Dragon Lee and Axiom would have come out, and then that would have been why they were getting called up.
I mean,
But
how much of this also is because Ray's injured as well? Because obviously, I don't know.
Because of the knee, yeah. I have no idea.
Yeah, for me, it just screams of they don't want Carlito to lose, or potentially Carlito doesn't want to lose. That's another thing to remember. Like, obviously, you know, Carlito is from obviously a wrestling family, and he's aware of how these things work, and you know, potentially he may not want to lose, and so soon into this kind of return. It's always weird when someone returns and they have a match on the pay-per-view, like, because like, what you know, you want them to kind of win, but also you're like, well, if he's facing someone like, you know, Escobar, who's been a big part of the product for the whole year, and obviously before that on NXT and stuff, doing amazing stuff, and do you want it to bring, you know, a 40-something Carlito back into the things for him to beat
take it away?
Spent a lot of time, but you know, this album comes up around Mania every year as well, doesn't it? Because you get the part-timers who come back and take spots, and people have been there all year. But it's a case of, well, respect though, no one's really going to watch, like, pay to watch Akira Tozawa, you know, at Mania, but we'll pay to see Brock Lesnar. So it's like, but yeah, for me, that's what it screams of. It screams of either there's a legitimate that. In recent times, it seems they've only done this for legitimate reasons, like, you know, people being injured. Because I think they've been wary of this tactic not being good for fans. Like, if you promise a talent and they don't appear, it just makes you look bad. And so, purposely, in my opinion, purposely doing it is stupid. So either Carlito is injured, or there's a problem or something like that, and they've had to legitimately take him out of the match. Or there's been the decision made that they don't want Carlito to. They or Carlito do not want Carlito to lose, and so they have put in Dragon Lee to lose in his place instead.
Yeah, I mean, that's more likely.
That's kind of what it feels like. It feels like there's a problem maybe between Carlito and Escobar, one way or the other. Like, they either don't want. I think as well, I'll answer this question that people might have. Even if Dragon Lee wins, I would then say I'd still think that potentially they might have had a problem with Carlito beating Santos, because you're bringing back like the old guy to beat the new guy. Whereas at least with Dragon Lee, if he does beat Santos, it's a case of, okay, that guy's on TV more regularly. You've got something to build with, where it's still like a young star and someone who'll be with the company for like quite a long time. The thing is, I could be overthinking all this, but I just feel that because they just spent so much time only really doing this for legitimate reasons, I don't see why they just go, oh, this time we'll just do it because, like, bants, isn't it? Like,
It's strange as well. I think, as you said, with the Rey Mysterio injury, I think obviously it puts a lot of stuff on hold. I mean, the question is, if we were told that Rey wrestled with a torn, it was either an ACL or an MCL, for like 3 months. So if he didn't have a torn ACL or MCL, my question would be, well, would Logan Paul have won the title? Would this stuff have been happening? Do you know what I mean? Like, what would the story have been the same, or was the story going to be the same, but a different outlet would have been against Rey versus Santos next? So I feel like at the moment they're kind of, by taking away Carlito and using Dragon Lee would be a thing to, like, okay, let's just hold the story to see where Rey's at. We're going to try and stretch it out. So maybe they're going to go more of a promo. I mean, whatever the reason is, it'll be, as long as it's legit enough, should we say, story-wise, or actually legit, it's something that Santos can use as an excuse of, you don't want to face me, you're scared. So Santos can actually use it as ammo kind of thing in a way, and really turn him into a stronger heel. But, you know, I mean, his mic work is incredible. I mean, I don't know if you've been catching some of the promos that he's done. They've been really good. You know, just the way his mannerisms, the way he's now portraying himself. Plus, we've got the LWO. So is the LWO broken? You know, why would you spend so much time building them?
It seems he's left, and obviously Ray's injured, and then the nice spot where the other two don't matter.
It's just Vega now, isn't it? That's Selena Vega.
Vega and was it Phoenix and
yeah,
and like another one, Cruz del Toro, his name,
yeah.
But I mean, they're not the main people. You know, I think, I guess this one will be interesting. Like, you know, maybe Carlito does show up towards the end again. You know, because again, we can't rule out, obviously, last month he did show up towards the end. But it does reek of there's been some sort of change creatively in this story. And obviously, you could argue, yes, it might have started when Ray got injured. It may have started after Ray obviously has to take the time off. As again, it's not knowing, like, did they know, you know, again, do they, with Ray, like, you know, he's a company man, so like he understood he had a title, he got injured, he understood that with respect, you know, between WWE and AEW, these belts have been all these titles now have been vacated so many times, haven't they? Like over the past year, 2 years, because of, and a lot of it annoyingly has been because of stuff outside the wrestling ring, which obviously, you know, that's the whole other thing. But Ray, being a company many years, probably just wanted to lose the belt honorably, and so he did that, and then agreed to this angle, obviously on SmackDown a couple of weeks ago, where obviously he gets injured, and now he's obviously going to make a return, most likely at the Rumble. Let's be real, or leading up to the Rumble.
So they're saying, I mean, how long does an MCL ACL take to? I mean, he was resting on it for a few months.
It's only a partial tear. They said it'd be about 6 to 8 weeks.
So that works out Rumble-ish.
Yeah. I think we'll see him probably return around Rumble time. But yeah, like, I'm excited for this match. I think I was more excited when Carlito was in it, obviously, as I always like Carlito. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping that Carlito does make some sort of appearance. But
with his old music, hopefully, as well, because that new one's atrocious.
Yes. It's annoying, isn't it? So it's the whole music thing, but that's a whole other podcast. I think it was like, for me, it was like Women's Rumble in like 2021, 2022, when you had to wait until the wrestler got in the ring before you realised who was in the ring.
Who it was,
music was so atrocious. But anyway, but yeah, I think this will be a nice, good technical match. Obviously, Luchador, they have their spots, and I think obviously they're people, the two guys who probably complement each other quite a lot, and potentially, if the creative change is something which is outside of the fact of Carlito not wanting to win, it could also be creatively, because look, they're kind of thinking, okay, Carlito may not be the right person to showcase Santos Escobar off against, like, first. Let's maybe have him do that match against Dragon Lee, where he can get cool stuff in, and obviously Dragon Lee, obviously he's young. It's just about he's younger and faster. That's what it is, you know. That's what happens. And then they do the Carlito match further down the line. You know, that could be one way. But I'm looking forward to it, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking forward to it when it was originally Carlito. Weirdly, I think I'm looking to it a little bit more now that he is Dragon Lee.
I guess it's someone different. I think, you know, WWE gets criticised, you know, and rightfully so, to be fair, for only featuring limited number of performers on their wrestling shows. And I think it's just nice to see different people making the cuts for pay-per-views, you know, and it's where we're at.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only thing that can come from this is we get an amazing match from Dragon Lee and Santos. You know, I mean, as you said, the luchas, they have a specific style. You know, I may be wrong, but they do everything. If you're on the inside and you know, they do everything on the right side, as opposed to traditional, which is on the left side. That's about as much as I know on the inside of it. But like, it'll be. I mean, they're going to put on a spectacle, man. Just if you haven't seen what they've done before, or at least independently within lucha stuff, then just go back and watch like Lucha Underground or other shows that they've been on. Man, they are so good independently. So putting them together is, you know, you're going to get a spectacle. So if the women doesn't steal the show, then I reckon this could be up there with, you know, it could be one of those things that you don't expect it to be great. As Michelle said earlier, we watch it and we think that they raised the bar.
Can I just stop you? I think the pay-per-view starting now.
No.
I'm on a network now. I've got Then Now Forever playing, and it says Survivor Series, not kickoff. So Survivor Series WarGames. Watch live. Literally, the signature is playing now. Pretending by Cricket for 5. Survivor Series. Is it the kickoff? Oh, it's kickoff. Okay, thank God. Okay. So I didn't realise the thing.
Give me a heart attack.
Kickoff also had. Sorry, guys. I didn't realise the kickoff also had the Then Now Forever. I don't know. Maybe I don't watch it start the kickoff, I guess. But yes, just so people know now, my plan is to take off here in about half an hour or so. But we'll watch the first part of the pre-show, and we will keep people updated as to what goes on. They are, of course, Survivor Series WarGames in Chicago, Illinois. The arena is not looking too full. Oh, interestingly, their setup is outside for the pre-show.
Yeah, I've just seen that. It's strange.
It's very interesting. When they do
why do you think it's interesting?
I think it's interesting
what are you getting from that?
because they can control the audio better with fans. They can keep the audio of the arena out. So obviously, if there are going to be the people who want to chant for a certain Chicago feel, there's not going to be as many of them outside, and they can obviously they're focusing on the microphones of the people there versus obviously having potentially 10, 15,000 people chanting. Because most likely what you've got is you've got them most likely telling certain fans to be there, because there's people with signs up and stuff. So you'd have thought all those signs are vetted, by production people if they're making
100%. Yeah,
these people.
Although there was one that said about.
They can control it a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, there was a sign that said "Spank me, mammy." So I don't know how much control he got there, but
yeah. Or they're so obsessed with Chicago Phil chants only. Yeah. But yeah, we'll keep it all posted, obviously, as and when. I understand they are meant to announce which of the women's teams gets the advantage on the pre-show, because they did a poll for that, didn't they? Sponsored by one of the many disgusting chocolate cereal brands, I think, in America. And yeah, let's get run down the card at the moment. I think that, I guess if we return to the WarGames thing as a whole now, I think obviously this is the second Survivor Series branded under the WarGames moniker following last year. Prior to that, it was obviously an NXT event held, I think, on the same weekend, wasn't it? The Survivor Series weekend usually had NXT WarGames followed by Survivor Series. And obviously, Survivor Series for multiple years had the brand warfare storyline. That was a thing that happened for multiple years. And it'd be interesting, is this now going to be, for me, it feels like they don't want to, obviously, Survivor Series, I think to me, Survivor Series, it always just was a match I really liked. And so are they going to steer away from that full time? Or is this like a phase, essentially? Is this let's be real, you could probably brand a lot of the Survivor Series matches between 2016 to 2022 or 21, as Survivor Series brand warfare. If that makes sense, if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Are they going to maybe in a couple of years go, you know what, let's rest WarGames, let's do something else now, But I guess with WarGames, if they see it sells tickets, I guess that might be what it dictates.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, something that I have a big question about. Weirdly, I think it doesn't annoy me, but you'll understand what I'm saying is we've got 2 WarGames matches, right? Which I'm not against. I enjoy watching WarGames. The NXT ones are great. Ricochet in this one, weirdly. But there's no traditional Survivor Series match. And to me, I think that's the key to Survivor Series. So I'm kind of unsure on my thoughts on it, how I feel about it. I mean, what's your thoughts?
I guess it's with everything nowadays, isn't it? Things get rebooted and, things get brought back and it's a bit different, female, all female reboots or the woke reboot, whatever it is. And I think the difficulty now is that everything has been going for such a long time. And, you know, this would be like in the 80s complaining that they're not doing stuff from like the 60s still, you know, in wrestling and in the entertainment medium, which is never going to happen. But I do think that they're, in my opinion, that they've kind of merged two events together. And I guess because obviously we just come out of the era of the gimmicked pay-per-views, and obviously they still got a couple of them. But I think that because WarGames, basically, I think anything that requires a structure to be assembled, you know, it kind of needs to have its own pay-per-view, if that makes sense. Like, you need WarGames to be its own thing. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think, yeah, they've just merged two things together. And I don't know. I think the problem, I guess, as well, is maybe what they feel is they do throughout the year have quite a number of 4-on-4/5-on-5 tag matches on the TV shows. And so they might think it's not special anymore because they do it so often throughout the year. But at least with WarGames, they go, that is once a year. You know, and so that might be what they're thinking. But yeah, for me, it feels very much like this is a phase. It's in at the moment because they've got factions and because they've got, and because again they've got the competition, you know, AEW doing theirs, their blood and gut. They probably feel they need to keep their match going, particularly with now because obviously a lot of the people who were in the original ones and NXT have now gone on to AEW and elsewhere and doing.
That's why they can't use the footage.
You know, so we need new footage. So I guess that could also be it. But it just, for me, scream of it being a phase. But because the matches are quite dangerous, I do think it'd be one of those where I wouldn't be surprised to hear in a year or two, you say somewhat a biggish name, like a Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, saying her because you're on TV at the moment, turning around and saying, you know what, I'm not really a fan of WarGames, leave me out of it, you know? You know, with respect, Becky Lynch getting paid, you know, 7 figures a year, you know, if they said to her, okay, don't do WarGames and you'll lose, you know, the odd figure from that, I don't think she'd, you're not going to lose any sleep over it, I don't think.
I mean, that and merch sales, definitely not.
Yeah, like I think, because I think the match is quite, you know, it was always injury laden already, wasn't it, in NXT? And obviously the problem you have from a main roster point of view is you can't really have like your main people all be injured because of one match, you know. Especially, you know, obviously the holiday season, you know, after, as we know, WWE Survivor Series is like their final pay-per-view now of the year. They gear up for the Rumble. But you don't want to have everyone injured going into the Rumble, do you?
Exactly that. But yeah, for me, I just feel like with especially with Survivor Series, not having a traditional Survivor Series match, it just feels very, very strange to me. It's like kind of in a way, the way it used to be, like you'd have WrestleMania and have Money in the Bank. So when Money in the Bank was taken away from it and made it its own thing, it kind of felt like, well, it's not WrestleMania without Money in the Bank. Like that was that time, you know. Or like Rumble without one of the Rumbles. It was there for a reason. It was traditional to have Survivor Series as this team versus this team. Now I know we're getting that within a WarGames kind of style, but it still feels to me very. At least have one that's traditional. You know, like
I don't know why they can't do both. Because the thing is, because the thing is, you could argue Survivor Series in a way is the original gimmick pay-per-view. You know, this is where it all began because Survivor Series was the second event that they ever did, second pay-per-view event they ever did. And, you know, it is a gimmick. It was named after the match. And then obviously then the Royal Rumble came and that was another one. And obviously King of the Ring, named after the tournament. And obviously over the years. So it's the thing, when, you know, I remember saying this to someone at the time when people were kicking off about the gimmick pay-per-views. I'm saying, well, they've always had this. They've always done this. Like, you know, what Survivor Series was. It was a gimmick pay-per-view. It was a pay-per-view where you knew you was getting Survivor Series elimination tag team matches. And, you know, it worked for a number of years. And then, you know, I think in the Attitude Era, it was difficult because it was more difficult to book them because you had like just huge star power and you need to make sure that they were featured. And so we did other things like triple threat matches and all that kind of stuff. So they'd feature the main people more. Because obviously in a Survivor Series match, if it's 5-on-5, you have to factor in if it's a 30-minute match, there's 10 wrestlers in that match. You know, a lot of those people are only wrestling for like 30 seconds, a minute and a half, maybe. You know, some of them are wrestling a bit more, obviously, if you're doing the whole Soul Survivor gimmick, I guess. But on the most part, like a lot of people are wrestling less. And so why would you want your top stars, like, you know, on the show for less time? You know, but yeah, I wish, you know, in my opinion, there is a way to do both. Like personally, I don't think the women need the WarGames stipulation this year. I don't think there's been anything, and there's not been enough there, like between the competitors. The Judgment Day one makes sense, you know, and again, yeah, I think the Judgment Day one makes sense because they've had the escalation of all those people. But the women's ones, I'd be perfectly happy with just having it as a normal Survivor Series tag match, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the thing is that which match, if you had to take one off of either the men or the women, I'm just looking now at what's going on the pre-show. There is a CM Punk sign, by the way.
Is there?
Yeah, can you see it?
Oh,
like,
yeah,
interesting.
yes.
Yeah.
Proud much of that.
Interesting. But yeah, like if you had to pick between one of the matches to take away the Survivor Series like WarGames gimmick, is it the men or the women? Because if you take it away from the women, then it will be like, well, the other women not rightly deserving of it. And if you take it away from the men and the Judgment Day, it's like, well, they need it. So what do you do? You know.
Well, yeah. The thing is, for me, this is the problem with doing this 50-50 booking, because you forget the main thing of wrestling is about the story, and so I just feel get the story right and the massive agenda, people will be invested. Like I still maintain to this day that Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair at WrestleMania a couple of years ago is the best women's match in WrestleMania history. Like in my opinion,
Wow.
I think that Rhea and Charlotte did a very good job this year. But for me, Sasha and Bianca knocked it out of the park with that.
It was good.
Yeah. And I would go even further and say it is probably one of the best main event matches, regardless of the gender of the competitors, of about the past decade. Like it is like a really solid main event match. And so so what I'm saying is that proves that when the story is right and when the wrestling is right, like it doesn't matter the gender, you know, of the competitors involved in the match.
Of course.
But I would say with this booking, there just for me is more of a blood feud kind of mentality going on in the men's WarGame match, where you've got the Judgment Day, who have been this terrorizing faction for the past year and a half now. They've got a full lineup of people who, you know, sadly, Dakota Kai, honestly, like she must be made of glass at this point. Like it's been so, bless her, she can't catch a break. But yeah, you know, you've got Judgment Day who you know stuck together, been the same unit for a long time now, and they've got Money in the Bank as part of it. They've been tag champs. Are they still tag champs? Yeah, aren't they? Yeah, they won them back, didn't they, off Thingamajig, Cody and thing. You know, and then you've got like Cody, who we know loves a WarGames match, as you know, you finally get to do one. You know, but yeah, I feel that one just has more of the story for it. You know, like personally, I feel like, you know, Damage Control are like now they're based like a new faction, aren't they? You know, because they've only just introduced Kyrie and Asuka to it. When you got them based on four random people, you know, fair enough. I guess Bianca and you got kind of little alliances in there in terms of the women, but for the men's one, it is like 5 people are assembling to take down like a common enemy. If that makes sense. Whereas the Damage Control feels a bit weird. It feels a bit rushed. Like maybe if Kairi Sane had returned maybe a month or two earlier and you had more time to build up to it, but it just feels very random, just like, oh, we need to have 4 women. Like, you know, these 4 people work here, kind of thing. But they have stacked. Give them credit, they have stacked it. You got Becky, Charlotte, Bianca, Asuka, Io, you know, or Bailey all in the same match, which, you know, is a blessing. But they haven't announced yet who's got the advantage in that one. But yeah, we shall see hopefully on this pre-show. They're meant to announce it. So yeah.
I was going to say with the men's card, like on the men's one for Survivor Series, it's a complete unit. you know, and the fact that there is JD McDonagh there as well. Obviously, he's now an official member of JD, which obviously we've got that video of him and Damian Priest, and Priest giving him his jacket to welcome him in officially to Judgment Day. Love that. It's little moments like that for me are like, okay, that it's growing a bit more, you know, and they're trying to make something make more sense. So finally, with the men's one, what side are you swaying? Is it team mix and match, or is it team Judgment Day?
I think it's got to be the baby faces for me. Judgment Day, it's been too much. I think while they are like a big part of Raw, and like, you know, it's good that we are obviously, so they're showing the attack on Ray. I just feel that, especially in America, it's Thanksgiving weekend. Like, you know, kids are probably off school and stuff. Like, it's still a PG company, it's a family company. I think, yeah, you know, just send people home happy. You know, send people home happy. And I think the way to do that is for the babyfaces to win this match. You know, Judgment Day have got enough they've had enough time, in my opinion. And yeah, it'd be nice to see the babyface get a win in this.
Yeah, definitely. I've got another comment here, so just shouting out to Daniel Wiley joining us
Dan.
as always. How you doing, Daniel? Hope you're well and you're still with us. Obviously, we're going to be getting ready to wrap up soon. Hopefully, we can find out what's going on. Just saying, I love the LWO top that they've just shown, like the vesty with. Man, why are they not selling that one? I would add that to the collection. I'm looking forward to Survivor Series. Overall, one match that you're picking that you feel like you're really gonna enjoy. If you had to pick one out of the 5, which one are you going with?
You know what? I'm gonna go for the men's WarGame match. As much as I am not the biggest fan of the WarGame stipulation, I'm still very much like, you know, seeing Randy Orton return, the possible kind of implications this match could have. We haven't really mentioned it as much. It's a hard one to mention, I guess, but they've got the cash-in element that could happen. I don't think it will. I think it's a bit hard in the WarGames scenario with so many people around. Like, you know, you're going to kill everyone off and then allow Damian Priest. You know, it's a bit hard, isn't it? To kind of do, and there's so busy, a lot of things going on. But yeah, like I think there's a lot of element of surprise and you know, like coming for this. So yeah, for me, it's the men's WarGame match. What about you? I know you said
I still think Stark versus Ripley can steal the show, man. Like, I'm really looking forward to it. I think normally people complain, Ripley does this, and then it's over. But when you get the likes of Ripley against someone like Vega, you can see it. But then when you have someone that's kind of on her level, as in like either size wise and like within like thickness of muscle, or as in height as well, there's something that she just has chemistry with them. You know, I mean, you put her near Nia, put her near Raquel. Stark is very small, but she's very well built, you know, within like muscle and body physique. So, yeah. So, like, man, I'm really looking forward to it. I think they're got a contrast of styles, but I think they're going to complement each other. And I think that's why I'm really invested. I mean, women's wrestling for me is one of my favorite things when done right. I hate when it isn't done properly, and they don't get given enough time and things like that. And then the fact that we've got one of the women's singles women's match, as you said, is hard to get on the Survivor Series anyway. And then you've got one in WarGames. So that's like what? How many women is that altogether? That's 2. And how many is in the WarGames? 4, isn't it, on each side?
Of the women's is 4, and then the men's are
4. Yeah. So we're getting to see 10 women perform on Survivor Series. I mean, when was the last time we said that? You know,
it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Like, so I am glad that obviously Triple H has been putting more effort into this, and you know, probably room for another podcast on this. But I think ultimately, for me, what something needs to change in wrestling as a whole, definitely in WWE, is just how the TV is formatted, because it's actually formatted to get you to not like a lot of the wrestlers. And because obviously when you think if you're a villain, your offense is in the commercial breaks, because they will go to a commercial and then, with the cut off of the match, essentially the cut off of the baby face, or there is another CM Punk sign. I forgot her name, but the lovely lady in the middle, she's blocking that sign. I think it says Punk will be Riot, something like that. And there was another sign previously, wasn't there?
There's another one there, just in the yellow, where we're on CM Punk sign watch
as well, and everything. Yeah, this is an interesting one, because they obviously have not vetted any of this.
Interesting.
And I thought that them doing it outside would be why, but now they are going now to close shots of all the people on the panel, rather than showing the crowd. So this is an interesting one, because someone's definitely in the production room somewhere going, "What the fuck are these signs?" Sorry, Scott. What the F are these signs doing on display? Lucky he's not here. Told me off for that.
You would have got in trouble for that one. But yeah, no, I agree with you. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to. I'm actually more amazed that you're looking forward to Survivor Series WarGames, because, as you said, you've made it very clear your thoughts and opinions on WarGames and stuff like that. So the fact that you are looking forward to it means that they have done their job right. So I mean, that's just a win.
This is the thing. I still go back to pandemic, and we got the chance to go to see the WWE house show at the O2 that was delayed about 55 million times, and it finally happened. And for a lot of us, it was not only the first time seeing wrestling since the pandemic had started, it was the first time us being in an arena, being out and about properly, so to speak, because the pandemic was a very isolating time. And obviously, even when we did get the chance to go out, it was in groups of 4s and 6s, and, only with people that you slept with or whatever it was, you know what I mean? But it was for a lot. And then you got in that room, and once you got in that arena and then you sat down, you took your seat, you all sat there and you realised something. No matter all these opinions we have, so we just spoke for an hour and 20 minutes. We said several different opinions and things about wrestling and predictions and things we want to happen and we haven't liked. But ultimately, as WWE fans, when we sit in an arena to watch a WWE event, we are reminded every single day, every single time we do that, by the fact that we just love WWE. And we're here in a room full of other people who love WWE.
Yeah.
And, that's the beauty of this, the fact that, and so, yes, I may get jaded and may get annoyed about certain things, but then they eventually will sucker me in by the fact that they are now presenting an event by a company that I love. And it will just always get me. It's a company I love, with people who have given me multiple, obviously as the years have gone older, I've got more, obviously it's less of them that have given me the multiple moments, but definitely there's the thing where you're there's people here that you watch and have admired for a long time, and so you're just always willing these people to kind of do well, and so it's got me because it's WWE. That's the reason. They always do. Randy Orton's helped as well, because I love a good return, and I think this would be this intrigue of the Punk thing, and the Chicago crowd's always a very hostile one. A Bobby Lashley promo package at the moment. But he's in ridiculous shape, so they got to do something with him. Obviously he's. But anyway, sorry. I just think in terms of this, it's a case of there's a lot of interesting elements to this show. So that for me overshadows the fact that I dislike the match type. But I think I will return to them disliking the match type when those matches start, and I'm like, come on, can we get to the bit where you can all finally pin each other, please? Because it's a bit annoying just seeing random things happen, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's Yeah, I'm just looking forward to it. And I mean, as you said, like if something hits you and you bites, and you finally bite back at it, and you think, actually, this is really good. I was exactly the same with Riddle. How long was I saying I just can't stand him? I hate him. There was something about him I didn't like, and then I went to one of the live shows, and then I got a selfie with him, for crying out loud. Like, it's like a full 180. Obviously, it's just the way he's built, certain things, and it just gets you invested. It's like it's so enjoyable to watch. And I'm looking forward to it tonight. I said there's so many different things that we're going to get to see, but overall, I just can't wait, man. I'm so excited. But yeah, I think the only thing that's weird is we don't have a big high flyer like a spot monkey for the WarGames and the men. Normally, you do have like a smaller guy. You have like your Ricochets or like Adam Cole's, Sami Zayn. Even Kevin Owens has done a little bit here and there. So who do you reckon is going to be the?
You've got Rollins.
Rollins,
I
Seth.
think there will be. I think there'll be enough though. I think this. I mean, I guess because obviously now we're going to see quite a lot of these matches. This is the other thing people don't remember. Like every time there's this kind of thing happens, you'll start seeing good, bad, and ugly. And in terms of like WarGames now, you're going to start seeing different versions of the match done. And I think, like Hell in a Cell, when it was every year, they had to keep making different versions of the match, like different, as in like doing it differently because you can't do the same thing over and over. So you got the one where, Shane got thrown off the cell. But then you got a lot of them that were kind of more like street fights, with all the kind of weapons and stuff. They change it into that. And so it'd be interesting seeing what happens with WarGames. And WWE, they really ramp up this whole story element of it, don't they? With the whole like storyline that goes into the match, and then obviously the carnage of the match. So they do hype that bit. But yeah, I don't know. Not having a high fly doesn't really scream too bad, particularly when they've got, and that might be again another reason why they've decided to go for the Santos Escobar against Dragon Lee. So you'll still see some high flying stuff on the show.
Just
elsewhere.
Not where you would expect it.
Yeah. And but then I guess you got enough kind of big spots that can happen still. And don't get me wrong, there's always, we could be in for surprise, I guess, someone doing a move you're not expecting. Don't forget, obviously, you got Bálor, you got Rhodes. But yeah, the arena's filling up quite well actually now.
It's getting there.
Amazing.
Got
still half an hour. Yeah. Sometimes it's not quite full yet. But yeah, we shall.
If that was in the UK, you wouldn't be full till about 5 minutes too, as always.
Yeah, everyone's always at the bar or vaping.
Yeah, especially with Scott.
So,
all right. As we wind down, final thoughts, final opinions, final thoughts. Anything that we haven't covered yet?
My final thoughts, I think. Look, I just think I was ended by saying, look, I just hope it's a good show, and if we do get Punk, I hope that it's in an exciting moment that the fans really love. And if we don't get Punk, I hope the crowd don't turn sour on the event. Though it has proved that he is now very divisive in the fan base. And while there are a lot that like him, there are a lot that don't like him. So we could see a hijack both ways where you do get Punk chants, but people cancelling out those Punk chants. But ultimately, if Punk is not there, it's just bad for the performers that are there because they should be getting the chant and the energy of the crowd. So I think it would be an interesting one seeing what happens at this one, because as much as I think they've done enough to not need Punk or allude to Punk being there, there's we're seeing within the first kind of 5-10 minutes of the pay-per-view if there is enough, if there is still the Punk support, because that could make or break the night, depending on if he is there or not.
Yeah, I agree. So before we wrap up, guys, obviously there's I've got to do the plugs, otherwise Scott will turn me off. So there's a couple of ways that you can support the channel as a whole. So if you haven't already and it's your first time watching us, then hit that notification So you get a little hit the bell as well and subscribe to us, so that way you know full well when we're coming online. And then we're going to give you one of these live videos. We don't just do live videos though, but for those that are listening and those that are fans and enjoy it, but they don't have lost time to watch the video entirely, well, we have a podcast on Apple and Spotify. You just type it in RM Pro Wrestling and you will find the podcast there. But do we just to do podcasts on wrestling? Well, no, we don't. I'll tell you what we do. Keep the doo-doo out. we do watch-alongs. So we've done 2002 Survivor Series and 2012 Survivor Series. That's myself and Scott. We've done a couple others where we get to talk about it, and from that we get little videos and goes into its own podcast about, for example, was the Shield the best faction ever? That was a conversation that spawned off of the Survivor Series 2012. Not only that, but we get the chance to speak to some of the wrestlers. Scott looking lovely into Finn Balor's eyes, as well as him in trying to enjoy a great conversation there with Liv Morgan, and even him trying to stand and join in with Imperium, looking like kind of like the odd one out, I would say. But yeah, so we always get the chance to do all that sort of stuff. And I think one more just for you, Lucas. Dan also had the chance to speak to Pretty Deadly, obviously one of them being trained within DKW, and I believe that would be Elton Prince.
Indeed.
Yeah,
good to see him back as well. Yeah.
At some point, maybe we'll get him in the WarGames. That'll be something to talk about. That'll be yeah. But so obviously we're going to wrap up now. So no more final thoughts. Obviously, thank you for joining me today. It's been absolutely it's been interesting, man. It's a nice little build up. More quiet today than normally. There's just chaos on dirt sheets and stuff like that going on. Not really had much other than the punk stuff, which is nice.
Which we shall see. Yeah, we shall see. Hopefully
Yes, we shall. Thank you for everyone that's watched us, either live or on demand. As I said, you feel free to hit the subscribe button and give us a follow on our social medias. You know where they all are. They're all going to be in the description box. And in that way, you can keep up to date with what we're doing, when we're doing it, and how and where we're doing it, whether that's live, demand, or even on a podcast form. So I think that's it. Any final words?
No, that's all, guys. Enjoy the show.
See you later.
Welcome to the Rebellious Noise Pro Wrestling channel. On this channel, we bring you some great content from inside and outside of the squared circle. We will go through and offer some in-depth analysis of the biggest events of the year, as well as bringing you exclusive interviews with some of the industry's biggest names. There will also be live show reviews, in-depth features, and podcasts. So make sure you give that subscribe button a slam so you don't miss any of the action.